She needs your strength more than ever right now. Sulk in the shower. Man the hell up. Squeeze into your jeans and your shirt and everything else. Walk around, make this money, and then move on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another fun-filled edition of Soap Floor. Hopefully fun-filled. I'm your host, Jet, viewing and reviewing one of the soapiest, sudsiest, primetime storylines of all times, most likely. We are back in Knott's Landing for Season 3, Episode 3. So whether you're new to this or true to this, sit back and enjoy. Tell the kids it's time to play outside or out of sight. Tell babe no questions, suggestions, or concerns for the next 25 to 35 minutes. Everyone else in earshot, cool, quiet, or kicked out. Those are the only options I have. I have nothing left to give you. Can't get with it, get out. Because we are watching our stories. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Soap Floor. Hello, party people. Welcome back to another fun-filled edition of Soap Floor. Oh, how you doing, Soapine? How you doing, friend? You good? I am so curious to see what the newbies, if you're watching this in real time, were you shocked? Did you really think he would die? I did not think it, and it was a possibility, but I wasn't really thinking it'd go there. I thought he'd probably be in a wheelchair for most of the rest of the season or something like that. Did not see that coming in. Trust me, Sid will be eulogized. However, at the time of this recording, I just finished watching that yesterday, so I need a minute to sit in my feelings. But I thought, you know what, Jet, let's persevere. Let's go ahead and get through this. And that's exactly what I intend to do on Season 3, Episode 3. It's something about the tertiary seasons. Like, you understand that you're probably popular enough at this point. I haven't done a lot of digging with Knott's Landing because I don't want any spoilers. That's the difficult part about watching this blind. You just never know what's going to pop up. And by and large, what I'm finding is that people who love the show love it and they want other people to love it. They don't want it spoiled. So shout out to everyone who texts or gives me little tidbits. I love it so much. Thank you for never, ever, ever spoiling. And I promise you on the next episode, we will definitely eulogize Sid first. But I just kind of want to get through Episode 3 because fool me once, fool me twice. I can't do this a third time in shambles. Considering Sid is gone, I fully anticipate this to be a very sad episode. So I'm going to go against the grain this time, watch it to completion, and then come back and we'll discuss it a little bit, okay? Grab yourself something bubbly and a comfortable blanket. Probably should be sitting down. I hope you're sitting down. I guess it doesn't matter. You could be at home listening to this. That's irrelevant. Let's jump into Season 3, Episode 3 of Knott's Landing, Aftermath. Wow. Okay. The best way to describe this episode is that it is really all about Karen. When the show opens up, we are at Sid's burial. We're graveside. She and the children are surrounding his casket. The rest of the gang are sort of flanked in various spots around the cemetery. As the preacher reads his final words, you're just kind of looking at everyone, and you can tell they're watching Karen. She hasn't shed a tear. She's not crying. The kids aren't crying either, if I'm being fair. And I just thought this is probably they're all cried out. They didn't cry on the way home from the hospital. They cried that one time. I really thought she was going to pass out. I thought for sure she was going to faint once the doctor told her he died, but she didn't. She just sort of dug deep, and she is being strong for the children. Now, obviously, you know she's in grief. You know she's in pain, but she has the best poker face, except at the gravesite. So she looks a little bit like she's in a trance or just someone who is in shock. And as we look around, Laura's actually crying. Ginger's getting a little bit upset. Val is watching Karen like a hawk watches its prey. And so is Gary. Only the look on Valene's face is like, okay, when she breaks, I'm going to jump in and catch her. Gary's just like, oh my God, I did this to you. This episode is so rich and so good. I really hope you watch it for yourself. Because Knott's Landing is doing that thing that they do so well. That sort of unspoken, just beautiful expression. There's so many times that I've watched this show and nobody's saying a word. It's just like those moments where you catch people by themselves. The way they're thinking and just not saying a word, but you can hear everything they're thinking. You can feel everything they're feeling. This episode is very, very heavy on that. So Sid is buried. Karen's looking around the crowd herself. She kind of makes eye contact with Gary at one moment, and it's like he almost breaks down. He doesn't cry, but it looks like he really wants to. But as they say, the show must go on. So the next time we see Karen, she is at the dealership or having like a rally, morning muster, if you will. And it seems as if everyone at the dealership is not only sad that Sid is gone, it's an awful tragedy, but they're worried that the business is going to close. She called this meeting first thing in the morning so that she could let them all know that's not the case. We're going to carry on as usual, and I need your help. I thank you guys all so much. We're a family here. We're just going to keep persevering. It'll be fine. Abby walks in, and I didn't realize that she was late or anything at first, but once the meeting is over, Karen goes to her office to look at the books. In walks Abby. Karen has let Abby go. She decided, Abby, you don't work here anymore. Such an interesting dynamic because it's like they obviously love each other, but it's very, very clear that Karen has always felt a way about Abby. She didn't, from what I gather, from what we've seen so far, Abby has never really had to carry any responsibility. And that might be cute when you're a kid, but when you are an adult and you still sort of behave that way, it puts a bad taste in your mouth. And if you remember, Sid never saw anything Abby did as wrong, while Karen watched her be manipulative and felt away. So when the time came and Karen knew that she needed to continue on with Sid's business, that selling it was not an option, she had to pick between the two lesser evils. Yeah, Gary did a bad thing. So did Abby. And that's Abby's point. She's like, okay, you just said you needed help, but how come you won't let me help? You're struggling over these books. It's going to take you all day. It'll take me like 5 minutes. Karen's like, I'm just sorry. I can't do it, Abby. And Abby's like, you're mad because I doctored the books. That's what a bookkeeper does. Gary gets to stay. How come he gets to stay? And at the end of the day, I was thinking, well, Gary actually made the money as where you hid the money. I mean, y'all both lied, but at the end of the day, I'm able to feed my kids because Gary is good at business and I dislike him less than I like you. Finally, Karen just comes out and she says it. Abby, I don't trust you and I don't think I ever will. Abby goes into this thing, which I thought was very interesting because everyone at the funeral or at the burial was waiting for Karen to collapse, to break down. She hasn't. Everyone in the dealership is now looking to her as like the new leader. What are we going to do? She's just as cheerful as ever. We're going to keep this business running. Everyone's either leaning on her for emotional support or waiting for her to need to be held up in some sort of emotional support. Abby, which I didn't even think about, says, I need to mourn. I don't feel like I can mourn. Karen finds this to be a ridiculous statement. Of course you can mourn. Abby's like, no, this was my big brother. I loved him too. He's gone. My children are gone. I don't even have a job to go to anymore. I'm sitting at my house alone and I need some sort of support. She says that in so many words. And you can tell, like, on one hand, Karen wants Abby to have to sort of not necessarily mourn by herself, but she's like, I'm not in charge of that. You have to figure that out. What people are failing to realize, especially the ones very, very close to her, from my perception on the beginning of this episode, is that this is a new thing. There's no book for this. There's no book for how to actually handle grief. Grief is not linear. It's going to be different on different days. And she's doing the best she can. But she is such a strong pillar to so many people that they are now looking at her like, hey, I want to cry, but I don't really feel like I can. It's so interesting because it's obvious that Karen pulls weight in the neighborhood and that she is such a support system for everyone. I don't know. I didn't really think about her being a role model of how to handle everything. It's not just Abby, it's the kids too. So interestingly enough, Diana, who I have found to be a huge brat again, has taken over Karen's role. Right away, she stepped in. Baby boy, what's his name? Michael. Michael is handling the grief by reading the obituaries every single morning, even 5 weeks later. He's looking for his dad in the paper, essentially. Diana cooks. She makes breakfast. She kind of watches the kids a little bit more. She's definitely stepped up as a partner for her mom. She's helping her mom out the best she can. I fully expected Diana to be a little more bratty and flip out on her, so I'm really, really glad that she isn't, but there's still more to come. Now, the middle boy, Eric, or the middle child, Eric, is quietly crying in the garage. As the show proceeds, you understand that nobody is crying in the house because they're not really talking to each other. They're not really talking about it. Diana can only take so much, so she confronts mom. One time at the beginning of the show, she's like, hey, I think we should talk. Don't you think we should talk about this? And Karen's like, no, everything is fine. Everything's great. But it's not. See, she's having these moments at the dealership where she can't even sit in Sid's office. His door is closed. She has to go in there and get some books at one point. And you just watch her breathe everything in. You know it still smells like him. You know it does. He had a closet there where he kept a clean change of clothes so he could come out of his coveralls, put on his good clothes, and go home and be with him. And she just she walks in that space and it's almost like it's a sacred place, which is why I'm thinking she's probably not going in there as much as she wants to. But then she can't really escape it because when she goes home, it's the same thing. It's his house. Her bed is empty. His clothes are still in the closet. His toothbrush is still in the bathroom. But she's just maintaining this sort of stoic, not necessarily stoic. It's more of, this won't bring me down. I'm going to be as mildly cheerful as I possibly can be. As the episode progresses, we get to see the family and how that unit works. And it's not much different than it was when Sid was there. Only now, Karen is gone most of the day. She's not just picking up the slack at home. That's not that different. That's what she's always done. What's different now is that she's had to absorb Sid's role almost completely at work. So she's staying later and later. And there's a scene where Michael calls her. And it gave me this fun sort of nostalgia. Like, I remember having to call my mom when we came home from school. And I mean, kids still call their moms. We call each other all day, every day anyway. But it used to mean if you called your mom at work, that meant you were at home. I just kind of miss that now. When kids call now, they can be anywhere, I can be anywhere. But it's that sort of connection. But the thing is, he's lonely. Like, when are you coming home? What's happening? When are you doing this? So in a sense, the kids have lost their father completely. And because of that, they're sort of losing their mom too. After one particularly rough dinner, where Diana makes this beautiful feast, and then she gets pissed at her brother for ruining the chicken by just kind of hacking through it, it all comes to a boil. Diana confronts Karen, and she basically tells her, we're sick of the way you're acting. We're all looking to you. We don't know how to act because you won't actually say anything. Or you're going to say, like, give us something so we can get through this. Look, you're the only parent we have. Do something, say something. Karen says, I can't say anything because I'll get mad. Now, this is where I did want to pop Diana in her mouth. You don't forget your place, little girl. I don't care how many hamburger helpful meals you make. I'm still the mother. But Diana gets upset because Karen says she's going to get mad. And she's yelling like a teenage brat. But like I said in the last episode, you got to give her a lot of grace because she just lost her father. So she's screaming all upside Karen's head about how she should say something. She should talk. None of us talk because you don't talk to us. Karen finally flips out. Like, I'm mad at your father because he just had to be this noble person. He had to be the goody two-shoes. He had his freaking morals. Always trying to help and save something. Basically, she calls him Captain Save-A-Ho. And as she's saying this, she's getting more and more impassioned. But Diana's like, okay, I didn't realize this was the smoke I was going to get. I don't want this anymore. So they're yelling back and forth at each other. Diana runs upstairs. Much like Karen, my favorite person in the world, Mr. Ewing himself, is also struggling with all of this. Of course, he's still working. He still feels this tremendous guilt, but he's also not really saying what he needs to say. Valene clocks this one morning as she's making breakfast. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about Karen. I don't know how she does it all. Gary is sulking at the table. Now, two things can be true at once. I totally understand why he's sad and why he blames himself. And he's always sulking. It's old. Valene sets this beautiful, I'm assuming, oatmeal dish in front of him with fresh blueberries. And he's like, oh, I'm not hungry. I was pissed. I'm like, why didn't you tell her that when you saw her cooking? You know what she was doing. He ain't said a word. And she calls him out on it. Not the breakfast, but she's like, now, Gary, I'm about tired of you moving around here with this guilt. If Karen's over it, you need to be over it, he says. Well, no, because I'm the one who has to carry the guilt. I'm like, God dang it, Gary. I get it. This is grief. You get to feel how you feel. I would never tell anybody how they should feel about anything. However, pause. Let's stop making this your entire personality. Oh my God, I'm the guy who was done wrong. I'm brooding. It's all my... Yes, it sucks. It sucks. But this woman needs you to show up at your best. She needs your strength more than ever right now. Sulk in the shower. Man the hell up. Squeeze into your jeans and your shirt and everything else. Walk around, make this money, and then move on. That may be a little bit insensitive, but that's just kind of the thing. She's like, listen, she got over it. She has her own guilt. She had to sign the papers. She has guilt too, but she is still showing up. She needs to break down, but she's still showing up. Richard in his new campaign, I am loving Richard, these first 3 episodes at least. He tries to stop by the dealership to take her out to eat. He take Karen out to eat. She didn't want to go. So everything seems Gucci and golden. Diana and Karen have that argument. Valene tells Gary to snap out of it. He and Karen go to work. Now, this has nothing to do with nothing, but Gary and JR love a good safari jacket. Maybe that was just what was going on at the time, 1981. Maybe they borrow it from each other, but I noticed Gary puts on the same safari jacket that JR likes to wear in Dallas. Goes to work, sits in Sid's office. Now, he has no idea this is a faux pas. He has no idea there's a problem with it. Karen, after going off on her daughter that morning, walks to Sid's old office, and Gary's in the chair. He's just working. He's just doing his job. He spins around, and before you know it, Tasmanian devil spirit took over. She starts swinging on him. Pow, 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 pow. Unfortunately, she didn't get him in the face, but it's okay. I understand. She just lost it. She freaking just blitzed, lost it. Gary gets up and he runs home. Gary don't want no smoke. He runs home and he bursts in the kitchen and talks to Valene, the Vidalia onion queen. He runs inside. He starts washing his face. Val hears him. She comes down. She's like, what happened? He's clearly pissed off, right? She's like, what happened? What's going on? What's wrong with you? And he's like, ugh, nothing. Eventually he tells her, Karen hit me. She's like, oh my God, why? Then he snaps at her. Now here's the thing. I just said, can't tell anybody how they need to feel, especially during grief. However, Valene is not the doormat anymore, okay? She is not the punching bag. She is not the person you release all your crap onto, and she just has to take it. So she's being very cool. He tells her to grow up. Stop acting so happy-go-lucky, like everything will be all right if everybody smiles and bears it. Everything's going to be perfect. I was so proud of her in this moment because she's like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to provoke me, and guess what? You're not going to get it from me. You're not going to get me yelling and screaming at you so that you can absolve yourself from this guilt. You're going to have to work through this by yourself, Gary. You're going to have to suck it up and figure it out. I was so proud of her. It was a stern talking to he needed because he got up and turns up and starts walking out. She's like, where are you going? He's like, well, I'm going back to work. She didn't fire me. I just love this. I love the growth. I love the tension. And it's interesting that he popped off on her. I guess that's part of love, though. You don't always say the perfect things. You just need to say the real things. And that's sort of the underlying the theme of this episode. It hurts. Composure is important. Strength is important. But so is anger. So is pain. So is losing it a little bit. Release. It's that thing. So eventually, Karen comes around to the house. Actually, before we get to that, Diana made me proud in one scene too because she's talking to Eric, letting him know it's okay to talk, but he's pissed because Karen went off and sold Sid's hot rod, but she didn't tell anybody. That's the thing. She's not really communicating, and I see what they mean. She's not saying anything. It's not that they're just not talking. She's not saying anything to anyone. But Diana tries to convince him, listen, give mom the same grace because she's doing the exact same thing you're doing. She's running away from her pain. Wants you to know I'm here if you need me. So after Karen's outburst, she does show up at Gary and Valene's house to apologize. And to my surprise, my girl Valene is a little bit pissed when she answers the door. She loves this man this much. She's like, what you're not going to do is hit my man. I thought we was going to have a good old-fashioned Kentucky knuckle fest, but that didn't happen. Karen decided she was going to apologize, and Val let her. She basically finally is able to express it to somebody that there are too many emotions. She feels everything. Grief, anger, the pressure. She's feeling all these things, and she is sorry that it came out on Gary. She also sort of sadly admits that she just tries not to think about him, which has to be the world's worst torture. This is someone you've been in love with. You have his family. You have his children. You see his sister. Like, she has to see him in everything she does. And her coping mechanism is, let's just not think about it. I think I'm going to stop there and just let you know that by the end of the episode, Karen does have a proper release. She's able to finally cry and let it out like she needs to, but it's for a very, very good reason. I like to keep a little bit of this under wraps in case you watch it, so you have something to look forward to. This was so good. I don't think everything needs to be explained. I don't think you can explain everything. You don't always understand your own emotions. And I find the older I get, the easier it is to talk yourself out of fully expressing yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like you put on these different masks or these different capes. You are someone's hero, someone's villain, someone's this or that. And when you need to really, really sit with yourself, sometimes that is just such an overwhelming, overpowering emotions. It's the one thing you can't physically walk away from. I think that's why emotions are so difficult. Well, you can try to exercise it in different ways. You can cover it up. You can pretend. You can convince yourself for a small amount of time that nothing's wrong, that you're strong. You just have to keep going on, but you will eventually break. That's just how life crumbles. And this episode did a really, really good job of expressing that. So much tension, so much kind of underlying sadness, but they didn't just go for the heartstrings on this one. They let it happen naturally, and I'm really glad they did. So let's end it here. Let's keep this episode short and sweet. I believe we're going to jump back into one more episode of Knott's Landing just so we can get I need a solid number at the beginning so that we can just do it 3 episodes at a time going forward. All right, guys, that's it. That's all. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you're watching it for yourself. Oh, I do need to clear up something. I keep saying it's on Amazon Prime, which it is, but it's under like the Discovery app within Amazon Prime, so you can get it and check out the show for yourself. In the meantime, in between time, be good to yourself. Go ahead and have a good cry. Let your emotions out. There's more room out than in. Stay hydrated, stay moisturized. Mind your business and keep all of your drama on TV.